Welcome, everyone. My name is Marina Belilovsky. I am a certified instructor and coach of Neurographica, and I would like to welcome you to Neurographica America School Spring Semester. Here is our welcome page. Please check our schedule. We have a lot of exciting events coming up. And today, I would like to welcome a very beautiful young lady, LizPublika, who is an artist, writer, and the founder of Untitled magazine. Today, she'll be talking about the inspiration behind her work and how to use art to appreciate human creativity and ingenuity. So let's get started. Welcome, Liz.
My name is LizPublika, and I am the founder and editor-in-chief of Untitled magazine, a new publication that is dedicated to covering the pragmatic side of art. Thank you very much to the Neurographica America School for inviting me to talk about my work. I'm very excited, so let's get started. I'm going to share my page with you, and you should be able to see it starting now. Wait, sorry about that. There we go. So as I've mentioned, Untitled magazine is a specific publication that covers the pragmatic side of art. What you could think of us as a art-centric cross between National Geographic, Vanity Fair, and How It's Made. I started the publication because at some point I realized that almost everything that is made by people has a specific aesthetic or an art direction, of whether that is the design on your cupcakes, or the style of the films that you watch, or the architecture of the buildings or houses in which you live. Essentially, absolutely every aspect of our lives is influenced by art in some way. And so I started a publication that shows you exactly how art is prevalent in your life, and our goal is to help you pay attention. Here's why. It turns out that we are having a massive worldwide boredom epidemic. Anywhere between 30 to 90% of people report experiencing boredom on a daily basis, and this is significantly higher amongst young people. 90 to 98% report feeling regular intervals of serious boredom on a daily basis, which basically means they feel bored more than once a day. How is that possible with so much technology and information being available to us pretty much all of the time, especially more often than not in the palms of our hands through our cell phones? Well, there are actually possible few explanations. One of them is lacking meaning. We would like to have purpose or meaning in our lives, and some people are lucky enough to find it early in life, and some people find it later. But the longer it takes, the more dejected some people become, and that dejection leads to a lack of participation in trying to do that, to try to find that meaning. The other possibility is emotional overload or overstimulation. With how busy we are and with how much information is constantly coming at us through advertisements in the news, and the responsibilities we have to our families, our jobs, the chores that we have to complete, and other things that take up our time on a daily basis, we are victims to fall into a predictable schedule. And a predictable schedule inevitably, despite all of this excitement, breeds boredom. The other problem is that sometimes people have trouble engaging with the world for a variety of different reasons, whether that's depression or some other condition that prevents you from being very, very active. In any case, boredom has many different side effects: irritation, apathy, aggression, anxiety, and the depression that I mentioned earlier. The last two are particularly problematic. The World Health Organization defines wellness as viewing man in his totality within a wide ecological spectrum, and emphasizing the view that ill health or disease is brought about by an imbalance or disequilibrium of man in his total ecological system, and not only by the causative agent and pathogenic evolution. That's a mouthful, but what it essentially means is that wellness is comprised of mental, emotional, and physical health. It is more than the absence of disease. You may be asking yourself, what does this have to do with art? it does in many different ways. If you think back to our beginnings, creating has been part of the central human experience since the dawn of time. We have used art to sort our thoughts, to document our realities, to make tools. And the fact that everything is available to us now at stores or is automated, we don't really get to create stuff all that much. According to science, engaging in creative activities improves our well-being for a number of different reasons. There's just the satisfaction of having made something. But there's also the fact that it reduces your stress, it helps you combat boredom, it helps you combat irritation, and it's a way to channel a lot of your energy into something productive. Although there are many different types of art-based therapies, especially for the Neurographica crowd, you already know just how therapeutic, engaging, and artistic activities may be. But there are 4 primary types of activity-based art therapies. Music is the first one. It is the most researched medium. Listening to or creating music decreases anxiety and produces emotional balance. A study suggests that if you are someone who's able to create music, you have a number of different factors working together to help you process information better. The fact that you have to read notes, the fact that you have to play the actual instrument or gadget that you're using in order to make music. All of that requires a certain amount of information processing, and the more you engage in doing that, the better that process becomes. More importantly, we've all had the experience of listening to music and have experienced the beneficial therapeutic effects it provides on an individual level. Sometimes when you feel very anxious, you know that classical music can help relax you. Alternatively, if you have to get really pumped for an event, you may put on a song that makes you dance, that boosts your energy levels. So the fact that this auditory stimulation can have such an impact on your emotional and physical health, or condition even, that's very, very powerful. And so that's why music is one of the most researched mediums out there. But then there's the visual arts. Engaging in visual arts has also a ton of different benefits to it. For one, you have to practice hand-eye coordination, and you have to pay attention to what you're doing. So that already is something that eliminates the possibility of you thinking about other things. But on a more simplistic level, if you think about the way that you look at photographs and that could spark a really pleasant memory, or you look at a painting that suddenly makes you stop in your tracks and think about it because it reminds you of something, or it evokes some sort of emotion, that's very powerful as well. And then you also have people who make mood boards, whether that is to express a desire, to kind of ration out your thoughts, or set a goal. So the fact that there's so much visual stimulation that we draw power from is something that we have to keep in mind and use to our advantage. Making art is very much like meditation and mindfulness, because if you take your attention off of the task at hand, quite literally most of the time, you risk the possibility of messing something up. So by having to focus on this one thing and not being able to really focus on too many other things that could be bothering you at that particular moment, you give your mind a break. And you also engage in an activity that at some point is going to produce a result. It's nice when you have a product that you have made. Before we get into movement, I will also mention that a number of different scientists have suggested that people spend time in settings that promote that emotional well-being. Research shows that people who are going into a house of worship may experience beneficial effects just by being in an environment with those visual cues, independent of the fact of whether a service is happening at the time or not. Spending time in a museum and looking at the creativity of other people relaxes you, but it also inspires you, so you're able to take that energy and actually channel it into something productive. Then you have movement-based therapies. One of the most obvious one is, of course, dancing, because you have to pay attention to choreography. It actually helps you improve the way that your body moves. And movement in any shape or form is something that already has a ton of benefits without the coordination aspect of that. So for instance, if you're a runner, a hiker, you like to take walks, you're a swimmer, engaging in those activities has just the simple physiological benefits that engaging in normal activity without thinking of it as an art therapy already does, right? So you have you're in better shape, you get a little bit of cardio, you stretch your muscles. That helps you think better, it focuses you, you're sharper. But if you are actually using dance or some sort of choreographed movement, there's another level of benefit that you reap from that. And movement is so effective that you even have a situation where in couples therapy, if you literally have to recreate your partner's movements and you have to spend a little bit of time in their shoes, it helps you develop a better understanding of them. It helps you improve your communication skills, it helps you relate better, and overall improves your relationship. Then you have writing. This one is the most personal for me, obviously, because I'm the editor-in-chief and writer at Art Publica magazine. When you engage in expressive writing, which you really should do the classic way by putting pen to paper, you're able to channel whatever thoughts you have onto a piece of paper. And it has long-term and short-term benefits. Although the short-term may also come with some negative side effects. I'll explain. When you write down a memory or a recollection of a specific event, if that event is positive, then the experience of just jotting it down and forming a new memory or solidifying a memory in print is a phenomenal feeling. But if you are somebody who has experienced a negative effect, doing it, writing it down in the moment potentially makes you relive the sort of emotions that you've had when that event was taking place. So initially, if you're recounting a negative event, you may experience those same negative emotions. However, being able to turn the page, to close the book, and move on from that experience is in itself very therapeutic. You could think of it as cognitive cleansing or emotional relief. But other benefits improve learning and memorization. If you have to write something down and just by combining those thoughts with actual physical movement, you're able to solidify some sort of new information or process information better. A lot of the times when you do math, it's nice to write down the formulas and to actually practice by doing it by hand because of those very things. Why this matters. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of us suffer from boredom, and boredom leads to different sort of mental diseases or mental issues. Mental issues have also been shown to impact us physically. And right now, Americans are experiencing an increase in cardiovascular disease. Diabetes is on the rise, so is hypertension. Diseases related to stress, anxiety, and depression really make up a very large bulk of the sort of treatments or the sort of problems that doctors are addressing currently. But when you think about art therapies, the activity-based art therapies, you may not necessarily realize just how much art is actually influential in helping you treat those disorders from not an internal mental aspect, but from a very different side. When you combine art with technology or science or engineering and mathematics, you really are able to create miracles. Some of the external applications of technologies that are fused with art include telemedicine. Now, I'm not sure if you know the term, but it essentially means that treating someone through a digital means. Virtual reality is visual. And if 10 to 15 years ago, virtual reality sets were extremely difficult to come by because they were so expensive, they weren't really utilized in treatment of different disorders. But now that they've become a lot cheaper, you're able to incorporate those technologies in telemedicine. For example, let's say that you are seeking treatment for exposure therapy, and you're seeking exposure therapy in order to treat some sort of mental disorder. Perhaps you have a fear of heights, or you have a fear of water, or you have a phobia of spiders. Exposure therapy is effective at treating those disorders. The problem is going out into a natural environment and associating yourself or putting yourself next to a bunch of spiders that terrify you can have adverse effects. Exposure therapy in a controlled environment, such as the one that's provided in your doctor's office, is a better way to engage in that exposure therapy because, one, it minimizes the physical damage that the patient could experience, and it allows the doctor to monitor them in a more conducive setting to helping someone. More so than just exposure therapy, virtual reality is currently being explored to treat conditions like autism and developmental disorders as well. So the sort of vast application of these technologies is only expanding by the minute. When you think about prosthetics, it seems as if humanity has always had some version of prosthetics, but the modern version of prosthetics could be really traced back to the First World War, when a woman named Anna Coleman Ladd, an American sculptress predominantly based in Massachusetts, wanted to contribute to the war effort. So during World War I, when soldiers were returning home with PTSD in combination with lots of different physical disabilities or disfigurements, she wanted to use her skills as an artist to help treat these individuals and give them back their physical as well as emotional integrity. So she decided to start the Paris-based American Red Cross Studio for Portrait Masks. Essentially, what she did was she used the resources that were available to her, copper, foil, paint, ceramics, in order to replicate body parts that were disfigured or are unfortunately missing for certain individuals. And she was able to make them so realistic by using, flesh-colored paint and using human hair for eyelashes, for mustaches, for hair, that a lot of individuals were able to look in the mirror and see what they used to see before the war, which for many of them was psychologically empowering. If you think about the prosthetics industry today, it has expanded incredibly. You have prostheses that are now functional, they're realistic looking, they connect to nerve tissue, they're highly responsive, and in some cases, you can't even tell that a body part is not necessarily natural to the person who sports it. It's interesting then to think about the way that other industries have incorporated this idea of allowing people to take control of their self-perception and the way that they want to be perceived by the world around them. They are no longer limited by the diseases, disfigurements, or other sort of physical attributes that have hindered their full potential or have impeded their ability to feel really great about themselves. Plastic surgery, tattoo artists, wig makers. These individuals are making a world of difference for people who have suffered from acid attacks or cancer or other situations that have caused them great physical pain. And it's interesting also to consider how fashion and the cosmetics industry is this massive, massive monster, but it is all based on allowing people to take control of that element of their appearance. Self-perception and self-projection are fundamental to our culture right now. And if you are able to feel good about yourself, at the very least, you can combat the anxiety or the stress that comes from not feeling your best. We've talked about how activity-based art therapies can help improve your cognitive state. We've also talked about how art-based technologies are able to sort of treat your external disfigurements or the things that you dislike about your body. But what if I told you that art can quite literally heal you from the inside physically? This is a little robot that was developed by researchers in MIT. They use an ancient principle, art discipline, called origami, in order to create a tiny little robot that fits inside a gel capsule. Now imagine taking and swallowing this capsule. Once the gel capsule melts, the little robot is going to be activated by your body heat. It will assemble itself into the shape that it needs to be in order to perform a task. And those tasks could be anywhere between performing microsurgery or administering medicine or collecting data that will then be transmitted to the doctor so that they could monitor the patient. It's interesting to think about how this life-saving technology stems from an art discipline that essentially spans back so many years. And the implications of this technology is still being discovered. It's rather amazing to think about what we're going to be able to do with this technology later on as more and more technological advancements sort of contribute to this progress. We have talked about a lot of different things and how they influence you internally, but we haven't really talked about how art influences your environment, and your environment is where you spend your time. When we were doing an issue on the art of city planning last year, my team and I have really discovered a whole different world of, it's amazing to think about how much strategy is implemented into creating your environments. For example, you may be interested in learning that, the High Line was transformed into a park because people at the Public Art Commission decided that it was a better use of that space, and by creating an artistic park, it would make the environment in that particular area of Manhattan better. The growing number of public recreation areas is another aspect of city planning that is strategically planned by this commission to give you a better quality of life. The public art that you see in those spaces or all around the city are just another element of the same thing. You probably have also noticed that a lot of recreation programs are starting to kind of occur during the summertime when people are out and about, and that is another sort of attempt of people to try to create an environment that builds community, that helps people relax better, that allows them to feel better about their situation and how they live. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that there is so much thought that is being put into your environments by the people who design them, by the psychologists that advise these committees, by the architects that build them. It's truly phenomenal, the sort of scale that this project or these initiatives take on in order to be successful. So as you can see, I advocate using art as a lens through which to see the world and as a tool to sort of improve the quality of your life. Why I love art? Well, it's because creativity is one of the most defining markers of humanity, as I mentioned earlier. By being mindful of this, each and every one of us can choose where we direct our focus, whether that's on creating art or by learning to appreciate how it influences our daily lives. We can grow to respect the inventiveness, depth, and resourcefulness of humankind, and by doing so, we can aim to forgive people for succumbing to their more ugly drives and desires. In many ways, it is a different kind of art therapy. I hope that by creating a magazine that aims to examine different subjects through an artistic lens, we can all learn to appreciate the incredible capacity people have for beauty, one subject at a time. It has occurred to me at some point that I actually suffer from depression. And by thinking in this way, I can deal with the sort of events that happen in the world that make me question the intentions behind people's actions. When you realize how much time, strategy, and purposefulness is incorporated into making your world a better place by individuals that you could find all around you all of the time, and the industries that spring up from these initiatives, you really start to understand that most people have good intentions, that most people simply want to do something good for the world and for the people that they love and care about. And that really helps me cope with some of the other more negative things that humanity is capable of doing. By really interviewing experts in their fields, I'm able to appreciate the monumental amount of time that they spend considering how to make our lives better. And because of that, I am able to run a publication where we get to share that information with everyone else. Marina, is there anything you would like to add?
Yes, thank you so much, Liz. It was an amazing presentation. And yes, we do forget to look at the positive and beautiful stuff around us and concentrate on small things rather than beauty of the world. And we tend to notice garbage on the streets. We tend to notice people screaming. We tend to notice something else, dirty windows, but we forget to notice small things which make us really happy. So I really hope that your presentation will make people think and invite beauty in their lives and appreciation of people who think about making this world a more beautiful place.
Well, thank you for allowing me to share this information with your public. I hope you guys learned something.
Yes, we definitely did. Thank you guys for joining, and please pay attention to Liz publications. She really publishes a lot of cool stuff. And check our schedule again. Have a nice afternoon, everyone. Goodbye. Join us for more.